couple of days ago, I was hanging out in the Gettysburg Museum of History, as one does from time to time. And while I was in there, Becky, who works there in the museum, said, "Hey, I've got a place that looks like it would be right up your alley." And she spun around her laptop and showed me this place where I am at right now called Camp Michaud. Camp Michaud started off as a farm like in the 1700s. And during the Great Depression was converted to a civilian conservation corps camp, and during World War II became this secret interrogation center for German and Japanese POWs. And we're going to spend a little time exploring this area and looking at the ruins of Camp Michaud. All right, we're getting ready to step off in the woods here. Now, typically on these trips, I find myself spending a lot of time just stumbling around the woods trying to find different things and figure out what they are. But I kind of lucked into this one. It looks like somebody has already done some of the work for me. They have some interpretive signage here at Camp Michaud. So as you see, it starts off in 1785 at a place called the Bunker Hill Farm. And they actually have a picture here that was taken around 1913. And the Bunker Hill Farm grew crops and livestock to support the Pine Grove Furnace Iron Works, which isn't too far away. And then, as I've already mentioned, the Pine Grove Furnace Camp was a CCC camp during the Great Depression, served Company 329. If you don't know what the CCC was, this was a New Deal program under FDR that put young men to work on like conservation projects. So they did a lot of planting trees and doing building trails and all kinds of different things. And it was set up kind of like a military camp in a way. Well, then in World War II, a lot of those boys were off to war, and this became a POW camp where German and Japanese soldiers were interrogated. Way more German than Japanese. I think there were only like between 100 and 150 Japanese soldiers who were here towards the end of the war. And then it's going to end up being a church camp. Okay, so you can see a picture here where these youth are gathering for a Bible study in the 1950s. And then here's a photo showing Camp Michaud during its time as a CCC camp. It says here they would earn $30 a month, and I know that some of that money had to go home to their families, or at least most of it. All right, so anyway, we're going to tromp around these woods a little bit and see what we can see. I've moved just up from where we started, and this sign here is talking about the Bunker Hill Farm, which says that European settlers first cleared and farmed this land in 1787 and did it until 1796, until an iron company purchased the ground and used it to feed the workers and families and animals at the local Pine Grove Furnace. And you can see that the old barn has fallen into some disrepair, unfortunately. So here is what it looked like in 1913, if I can get it focused there. And then you can see how this stone barn has just kind of crumbled over time, which is really sad. And then this is the state of it now. Now, during the time at the when it was a CCC camp, well, right up here there was a garage, and let me walk around here. We've got some unstable masonry here. The garage ended up getting converted into a horse stable when this became a POW camp. So they wanted to keep horses on standby in case any prisoners tried to escape, which never happened. As a POW camp, this had 2 different compounds, and we're currently standing at compound number 2. But there's something else that I wanted to show right up here. If you look, you can see these 4 pillar looking things here. Well, these were the bases for the guard tower when this was a POW camp. Now we're going to go over to the German prisoner compound here in just a minute. According to an old map that I found online, this area right here is where the Japanese prisoner compound was. I've moved over just a little bit, so right up there is where we just were at the guard tower and the old barn. And right here, you can see it's in a little bit of disrepair, but this is the foundation of the old farmhouse from the time when this was the bunker farm. And then it housed staff during the CCC and also the POW era. During the time that this was a POW camp, well, this foundation was improved, and somewhere here there's an inscription in the foundation that says Eric John Berlin. And recently when they went back and started pouring through records, well, they found records of an Eric John from Berlin who was here at this POW camp. But I'll be dadgum, I cannot find it anywhere. So you can see this is pretty busted up. So either the inscription has broken off, or it's covered by moss, or I'm just dumb or something, but I can't find it. And well, I can't spend the whole day here looking for it. But anyway, Eric John was one of the Germans who worked on improving this foundation here. I've moved a couple hundred yards south of the barn site and the home site, and an additional, maybe 75 yards off in this direction is where the south gate to this interrogation camp would have been. There's my rental vehicle. Here's a funny story. I rented that from Avis and actually ordered like a smaller car or mid-sized car that would get decent gas mileage, and instead they gave me that beast that's about the size of a Stewart tank. But anyway, if we walk back up in this direction, so the camp is up here. We were just on the other side of these trees. We're walking north right now. Well, this bridge was built during the CCC era, I think, and then was improved during the POW interrogation camp era. Now this creek right here is called Tom's Run, so this is Tom's Run Bridge. And let me get down here and see if I can't accidentally fall in this creek. Up there at the home site, I said that there was an etching that I couldn't find, but there are also some etchings here in the concrete that I was able to find. So it's a little bit unclear. Man, I wish I had some chalk or flour or something like that to make that stand out. But I can make out, like right in here, a 1945 and a few other numbers. Maybe that's a regiment number or something like that these guys are served in. But anyway, yeah, so there's some German writing here on the southeast part of this bridge. Kind of interesting. right now you can see I'm walking this this old road, or this old path. This would have served as the perimeter fence for the POW camp. And then right back in here, if we look there are a couple of old foundations that were CCC camp housing. And the German prisoners who found themselves, you know, across the Atlantic Ocean and here in the United States, had it pretty darn good. So if you were taken prisoner by the Germans, bad news, and the Japanese. But the prisoners who came over to the United States, I mean, they worked, but it was a pretty good life. It was sure as heck better than being on the Eastern Front or being in North Africa or someplace like that. And a lot of the German prisoners who ended up going back to Europe after the war ended up immigrating back to the United States because they liked it so well. I have a friend who trained down south, and he was in North Carolina, and he said that he could remember going past one of these POW camps, and they, you know, are humping these big rucksacks and getting ready to go off to war. And oh, look, we got another foundation right here. And he said they marched by, and these German prisoners are playing basketball. So anyway, they had it pretty good here. I just mentioned that I had stumbled upon another foundation. It turns out, oh man, I'm about ready to trip on that vine right there and fall right here on camera. Anyway, this foundation served as the foundation of the house for the commander of the CCC camp, and then later commander of the POW camp. And something else that is interesting is that right here, literally next to the house, well, we also have the foundation for another guard tower. So this would have been the northeast guard tower of the POW camp. So if we come back up here, that first guard tower that we looked at would be off in that direction. So I'm guessing we are maybe 200-300 yards away, but yeah, this is where the commander's house was. We've moved down just a little bit from the northeast guard tower, and you can see foundation of another building. See the footprint of it here. Some of these piers down running through the middle. This originally was a barracks for the CCC camp, and then during World War II it was converted to a mess hall for the POWs. And there was so again, you can see the outline here. This is the original barracks. To the best of my understanding, during World War II, they added like a kitchen area down this way. So we'll just walk down here. But this is the area where the prisoners would come to eat. And got ourselves a hole with some plumbing down in there. And I read that there's something else down here that I'm wanting to show. Oh, this went down here decent distance. I'm seeing some other concrete structures here. Hang on a second. Okay, so yeah, again, you can clearly see some more parts of the foundation here. And, oh, yep, there it is. Okay, this is the other thing that I wanted to show. During it's thought during the CCC era, well, the young guys who were here built this star out of stone. So you can see there's like quartz mixed in there and concrete and everything like that. But if we look even closer, you see those shiny stones. That's actually slag from the furnace that's close by here. Yeah, interesting. This path that we are walking along right now, just beneath us here would have been the sewer line that would have serviced the camp. And yeah, I think I see another marker up here. Oh, I actually see another ruin or structure here as well. But yeah, okay. So right here, this was built during the CCC era. And you can see that this is in the shape of an arrow that is pointing north. But this is where the flagpole for the Civilian Conservation Corps was. And then if we go down here, just a short distance away, well, again, we've already seen this a few times. We have some of the pillars for the guard tower. So this would be the southeast guard tower. So where we just were was right up in that area where the northeast guard tower was. And here's something else from the Civilian Conservation Corps era. They built a fountain here, and this is really the only structure in the whole camp area that is not in ruins. And again, just like I showed a moment ago with that star, you can see where they integrated a lot of slag from the old furnace into this fountain. Yeah, that is really neat. And then, okay, let me take a look. Okay, yeah, I think I see the next spot that I want to show. So I mentioned that there were two compounds here, Compound 1 and Compound 2. Yeah, here we go. So right here is where the gate for Compound 1 was during the POW camp era. As I've been moving around this old site, I keep calling this Camp Michonne, or not Michonne, that's the lady from The Walking Dead, Camp Michaud. But anyway, Camp Michaud was the later name of this camp. During World War II, this was called the Pine Grove Furnace P.O.W. Interrogation Center. You can see we've got some more foundational structures back here of buildings that were here at the time. At the beginning of the war, there were two other interrogation centers, one in Fort Hunt, Virginia, and another one in Byron Hot Springs, California. Well, the facility at Fort Hunt was getting a little bit too full, and the demands for that interrogation center were getting to be a little bit strained. So that's when they decided to open up this interrogation center right here. And throughout the course of its existence, I mentioned, the number of Japanese POWs who were here. I looked again, it was around 161 who were documented as being in here. They actually created another facility inside Compound 1 for the Japanese. But about 7,500 Germans would have been processed through this interrogation camp. Very, very interesting. Now this is really interesting. From everything that I've seen so far, this looks to be about the best preserved foundation here at this site. Originally, this was the forestry office when it was a CCC camp. So right in here would have been where all of the plans would have been made. So it's kind of like the nerve center, I guess you could say. But during the POW camp era, this building served as the main interrogation center. So prisoners would be brought here and questioned about weaponry, about tactics, about anything that they could to try and glean some information that would help the Allies in the war effort. Now afterwards, it became part of the church camp. I haven't talked about the church camp too much, but they used this building as well. That must have been so interesting to come to church camp here, especially for a history nerd like me. I would have loved this place. But in 1972, I think, this building burned, and the churches expressed some concern about the safety of the other buildings, because they've been built in 1933, and there was an unwillingness to do the necessary repairs. So anyway, the forest ended up taking back over when the churches didn't renew their lease here on the camp. Very, very fascinating. Got a few more things that I want to show before we wrap things up. So anytime we go someplace, I always like to give a tour of the bathroom as well. Well, here is the bathhouse and latrine here that was built for the CCC camp. And if we turn and walk north just a little bit here, well, you can kind of see some of those piers just a little bit ahead of us. Also, kind of see the outline of a foundation here. Well, this is another barracks building in the CCC camp. And here's something else that was built or made on the west side of the building, a keystone, which is appropriate for where we are. Now, during the POW era, this would have been converted and used as housing for the guards here. And let's walk over here, because there's one other thing that I want to show. All right, let's go over here. You can imagine, hundreds of years from now, people looking at this site, they'll have some good information because of some of the work that has been done here. But there's this big concrete marker that was placed here, and I don't know how well you can see it. I wish I had like some flour or chalk or something like that to color it in. But you can see the words P.O.W. right there. And then if we were able to see this clearly, well, up at the top it would say 3rd Service Command. So let's see if we can even see that. Yeah, you can see 3rd Service, and then it says COM right there. And then down below it has the dates April 43 to May 46. That's actually incorrect. The dates should be May 43 to November 45. But anyway, this denotes that this was once a POW camp. All right, well, we have circled back around to where we started, and man, I just enjoy the heck out of doing things like this, getting out, walking the ground, and exploring places like the Pine Grove Furnace P.O.W. Interrogation Center. Now, this was an interrogation center, but these POW internment camps were scattered all over the United States. So there's a decent chance that wherever you live in the U.S., you might have had one of those internment camps close to you. So get out, do some research, do a little bit of digging on the internet, and maybe some exploring, and you can kind of explore some of the history in your own area. But yeah, really enjoyed this. But for now, I'm gonna hop back in the car and head off to the next place.